DJ, put a nigga back to the record, baby, and give me this right now.
What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. LaShaunt here, and I know it's been a while since I came at y'all with the video, but I am back, and I am back with a different kind of video. I wanted to get into a little bit of discussion about Dave Chappelle's brand new special, or fairly new, I'm pretty sure, special called Unforgiven, and this is actually an Instagram special. It's 20 minutes long, and it is straight fire, fam. It gets into it all. It gets into what people really want to know, what people have been asking Dave for years. What happened with the Chappelle show? What really happened, bruh? We see that you've been throwing little nuggets of information at us. You've been throwing these metaphors. You've been throwing these like little stories to kind of allude to what happened. And the Bird Revelation, he talked about it with the correlation between what happened at Comedy Central, what happened with the the prostitute in that book entitled Pimp by Iceberg Slim. But people were still wondering, there were some people that were still like, oh, but I don't get it. Like, what does that really have to do with Dave? And so here, he just comes straight out with it, man. He talks about how Comedy Central did him dirty, about how he got, this horrible deal, about how he was basically tricked into getting his name and likeness taken from him from work that he put in when Comedy Central didn't really contribute much of anything to it, and he really basically got taken advantage of. He draws parallels to this, to what happened in his own life when he was younger, when he first started comedy, and he had somebody try to intimidate him and basically push him and bully him into submission for one of his jokes. He compares that to what happened to him. He also talks about how as a man, you never get in the way of a man's meal, of the way that he provides to himself. And he talks about how, messing with the way that a man provides for himself, if you ever mess with that, that is akin to killing a man, because that's, how you make your living. That's how you provide and everything else. And he tells these stories that tie so nicely into the special that, it really just makes you sit there and listen and think and really process what he's saying. Seeing Dave Chappelle's, not just the comeback is amazing, but also the evolution. For Dave to be gone from, I guess, the entertainment industry for as long as he was, and still, evolve the way that he did, because of course he was still doing comedy. But to be able to do that in front of a stage for that long, to be able to still do these specials, and for this to be some of his best work that he put out publicly, oh my God, you gotta give him a round of applause for that. You got to, because he's out here really doing it. And so yeah, he gets into it all. And I would definitely say, if y'all have not seen this, I don't know if it's on YouTube. Try to search it up on YouTube, see if you can find it. It's called Unforgiven. It is on Instagram though. That is where it originally came from, and it is a 20-minute special. So, if you don't have time to be able to get to, a whole hour special or whatever else, if you don't have time to watch Sticks and Stones and everything else, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? You can pop over to Instagram. You can go to Dave Chappelle's page on Instagram, and you could watch you a little 20-minute special while, maybe you waiting to get your hair cut, maybe you waiting at a, doctor's appointment, whatever. But just listen to Dave Chappelle talk about some real stuff that deals with creative minds, that deals with content creators, and that deals with how the industry really tries to take advantage of people like that. I'm telling you. And especially if you are a content creator, if you're trying to get into that type of space, it is very good for you to be aware of the type of trappings that Dave is talking about, because it's not just for comedians. This thing happens to movie stars. This thing happens to rappers, musicians, this kind of stuff. This thing's, it can happen to artists, anybody who's really a creative. Definitely go check out this special. The jokes that he tells in here wrap so nicely together and encompass the whole entire special. So I'm just going to give a brief overview where basically he gets into these two stories at the beginning. He tells two stories, one of them from when he first started comedy, about how this guy basically bullied him into taking his joke when he was a 14-year-old kid, a grown man who was a fellow comedian, supposed to be your brethren, going to bully little 14-year-old Dave Chappelle. That was probably when he had them buck teeth, all crazy with it, and that wild, I don't know what that was, that country hat or whatever it was, that he had from the Nutty Professor, and bullied him into taking his joke. The other story that he gets into is basically catching on to this guy, these group of guys that was scamming people with this card game, and he tried to call him out on it, and the grown man almost gave Dave, when he was a youngin', almost gave him them hands, but he didn't, to teach him a lesson, which was never mess with a man's livelihood, never mess with how he eats, how he provides for himself, because you will get clapped up. And that's real, and that's something that takes a lot of young guys a long time to figure out, and sometimes when they figure it out, those are people that, be getting shot or whatever else. But Dave learned it through the situation where this guy could have put hands on him, but he didn't. He used that as an experience to teach him. And so he gets fully, and I mean into full detail, on what happened with the Chappelle show. And man, let me tell you, when I heard this, John, I was just like, I understood everything. I first of all understood why he went to Africa. Second of all, I understood why he had all this, people smearing his name and everything else. And also, three, why it happens to other content creators. The same thing happened to people just recently. The most recent one I could think of is Joe Budden, when he was starting his own network and everything like that. All these stories was coming out about him raping dogs and abusing women and doing all this other crazy stuff and everything like that. When he basically called out Spotify for, I guess not valuing him, not treating him right, as a black man and everything like that. And that seems to be the same narrative with a lot of people that have genuine talent and who actually know their worth and don't just want to settle. Because that's what Dave basically says, is that he didn't want to settle. He knew his worth. And he knew that 50 million, that was not his worth. That he was basically going to, go out there and he was going to do it his way. And for a lot of people, that isn't easy. You know what I'm saying? Especially, like he said, when you're a young person and you have a dream, but it's at the same time, you got bills. You might have a kid and a wife or whoever that you need to provide for. Yeah, you might take that horrible deal that you at the time may even know is horrible, because you got to provide. You got to do what you need to do. Which tied into the story that he told about that guy that was scamming people, where it's just I'm scamming people, but I got people to feed. You know what I'm saying? I got to do what I got to do. And so he talks about all of that. He also uses this as a means to tie in what happened with the Chappelle show, and to tie in the compare and contrast between HBO and Netflix. So if y'all didn't know, or I'm pretty sure you noticed, because of how much impact the Chappelle show had, and because of it, coming back to Netflix and HBO. But the Chappelle show was put on Netflix and HBO, both streaming services, the whole entire 3 seasons. And this was done without Dave Chappelle's consent, apparently. And he found out when he was doing SNL. And if you look on SNL, if you saw that on his monologue, he made a joke about it, talking about how he wasn't getting paid for any of that, basically. This was just something that people did without his consent. He was not alerted to it. He was not consulted about it. And he was not making any money from it. And he was saying how messed up that is, and about how much that angered him as a creator. But he used that as a moment to further build upon that relationship that he has with Netflix, and say how Netflix also, as a company, it seems that they also care about their relationship with the creators. And it seems like, they care about the creatives. And he uses this to say that, he went to Netflix and he told him, after everything that happened with me, y'all know what I went through, or I guess, I went through a really tough time with that show, and it makes me really upset to see that you put my show on the streaming service when I'm not getting paid for it, especially since y'all treated me really well with these Netflix specials. Like, why would y'all do that? Like, it makes me really upset. And I think even to his surprise, like, I don't think that he expected that. He probably expected it to go really south, but whether it was due to Netflix being smart, realizing who Dave Chappelle is, what his potential is, and I'm not talking about money, because when it comes to being creative, it's not about money, and it's not about putting a dollar sign next to your name. It's really about what you're worth, and worth is encompassing everything. So it's not just the money, but it's how many people can you reach, what is your influence, what is your impact in the streets to the people, all of this. And Dave Chappelle has a huge, like, if there's anything that this special proved, it's that Dave Chappelle's reach, his influence, and who he is as a person is very, very big. And arguably one of the biggest in the entertainment industry, if I would say, because a lot of people couldn't do what he did. So basically, he went to Netflix and said, yo, like, this is really wrong. And to his surprise and to my surprise, Netflix took it down. And I hadn't even noticed it, because I'm not going to lie, when it first came to Netflix, I started watching that joint immediately, because I didn't know that, like, he was not getting paid anything, that he was not getting paid at all for whatever money the Chappelle Show is bringing in from all these streaming services. Because if anybody remembers, this was not the first streaming service that it was on. If anybody remembers, the Chappelle Show was actually on Hulu. The Chappelle Show used to be on Hulu. It was under Comedy Central, and it used to be on Hulu, but then they took it down for whatever reason. Maybe Dave said something, who knows. But Netflix actually wanted to stay in good graces with Dave Chappelle, and that makes sense. Not just because Dave Chappelle is making the money and because he's the, I'm just gonna say, he's the greatest comedian of all time. I'm sorry, he just is. People like Kevin Hart, who is the biggest comedian so far. Kevin Hart is the biggest, but the best comedian is definitely Dave Chappelle. But Kevin Hart has admitted. People like Donald Rollins has admitted. People like Eddie Murphy. People like Chris Rock has admitted it. Like, Dave Chappelle is just the dopest. He just is. But whether it was due to Netflix knowing how much he was worth, or wanting, like, I guess, to do the actual right thing, who knows what it was, but they actually took it down. Now, as of this point, from what I know, HBO still has it on their site, still has it on their streaming services. And Dave Chappelle actually revealed that, hey, it's funny that y'all guys are doing this, because before I went to Comedy Central, I came to y'all. I came to y'all and tried to pitch the show, and what did y'all do? Y'all could have respectfully said no, but what did y'all do? You laughed at me, you mocked me, and going to say, what do we need you for? Because, I mean, of course, HBO is big and everything, but just to do that to somebody, and, if I was ever a businessman, just to me, it always makes sense to treat people with respect. Even if I don't agree with the person, even if I don't like them, it makes sense to treat them with respect, because you never know what that person might grow into. Maybe their premise, whatever they're pitching to you, may not make sense to you, but you have no idea what their idea will do, what their idea or whatever they're pitching will do once you get further down the line. And that's something that you could potentially benefit from in the future. Once this person gets a status or whatever else, or once they prove themselves, hey, since you're in the big leagues now, I'm willing to do business with you. But that person's not going to want to do business with you if you disrespect them. And so that was his point. He's just like, yo, so you was talking about what do you need me for, but now you're using my comedy show, my comedy sketch show, to make, money off of me and off of all the jokes. Like, apparently you do need me, because you're using my show and you're getting paid from it, but I'm not getting paid. And the thing that I love about Dave is that he's to the point now, and it takes comics usually a little while to get to this point with their comedy, where the way that you start the comedy special ties into the whole entire special. It's to the point now where Dave, when he starts his special, it ties into the entire thing. So those two stories tie back in, because at the end of it, he talks about how, just like that guy, that comedian that bullied me into taking my joke. Okay, either you can give me my money that you owe me for this show because I'm the one that created it, I'm the one that put in the hard work. Either you can give me my money, Comedy Central, we can get back into negotiations, we can get back into, doing what we got to do, or I could take this joint, just like the comedian bullied him into taking his joke. And then the other thing that he used is talking about, hey, you're taking food, you're taking my means of providing for my family, you're taking that away from me. And he used that to tie directly into what happened to the guy that was scamming people. He used that to tie into the ending as well. And Dave also basically acknowledges the fact that, hey, Netflix, Comedy Central, whatever these big corporations are, they're not his bosses. He addresses the people, which is always so dope about Dave, that he speaks to the people on a very human level, so that no matter whether you're black, white, Latino, Asian, whatever, Australian, whatever, that you can identify, you can hear him on a human level. And I think that is just so dope as a comedian. I honestly think that if you want to get to like the top where Dave is, where I think that you have to have that. You have to be able to connect with the people. And so that's what he does. He connects with us by telling us these stories, telling us what really happened, and he uses it to say, yo, if you've ever really if you really care about me, if you really like my comedy, if you really like anything that I have ever done, please do not watch this show, because these people are stealing from me. They are messing with my means of providing for the people that I love, just like I was messing with the means of providing the way that man provided at that card table. So please don't allow them to mess with my means of provision. And I was like, yo, like, this is a big thing. And the reason why is because most people, and even he acknowledged it, that most people don't have the stones to do that type of thing. Because you gotta think, that's just not a problem for Comedy Central, because he's shedding light on, potentially a sleazy company or two sleazy companies in HBO and Comedy Central. And so you gotta think, forget about Comedy Central or whatever else, but what if you're like another comedy, network or whatever else, and you are, maybe you're sleazy, maybe you don't have the creator's best interests at heart or whatever else, and you know it. There may be a lot of people with, investors or whatever else that, may think twice about working with Dave, because they may view him as problematic, view him that he's the type of person that will shed light on, sleazy business practices or anything else. Because what Dave is doing here, and he acknowledged the fact that legally Comedy Central has a right to do that because it's in the contract, but Dave is reaching out to a moral level. That, yo, this is not right. This is my livelihood. This is how I eat. So please, I'm asking y'all on a moral human level. And that's something that I can't really say that another comic, or honestly that a lot of people in the industry, and I'm talking about entertainment, have been willing to do. You even look at YouTube, and people on YouTube get done wrong. So this is a very impactful special. Please, if you have not seen it, I don't know if it's on YouTube, go and check it out. Try to search Unforgiven on Instagram, on YouTube. Go watch that John, because this John was amazing. It was fire.